week 6 of the Couch to 5K program. We're now 16 runs deep, and there's a lot to talk about. So we are now on our 16th run. We have come a long way, and we've still got a way to go. So, having completed week 5, we are now on to week 6, which in fact is a little bit of a backstep actually. Compared to what I did in my previous run, it's for some reason it's been toned down. I'm not sure why, but here we are. In terms of the running split I did today, I did a warm up for 5 minutes. I then ran for 5, rested, ran for 8, rested, and then ran for 5 again. So if you do the maths, 5 and 8 at 5 gives you 18. So you run for 18 minutes, and then there's a few gaps in between to give you a little bit of resting time. And I felt this run was very challenging, not for the fact of like the sort of the run itself, but I felt this very strange misalignment between my mind and body. It's like my mind was so fixated on the idea of running and just getting through it, but my body just didn't hold up for some reason. I really struggled from the very start, and I can't really picture as to why. Perhaps it's because I've not run in a few days, or I'm really struggling to find an answer. Perhaps there isn't one, but this was one of those runs where I was quite content with the idea of running. I went out there, the warm up went okay, and then I started to run, and my legs immediately started to feel like maybe not stiff, but just a bit heavy. Like I was moving very slowly in terms of my run. I wouldn't even call it a run, to be honest. I'd call it more of a jog actually. And that kind of feeling persisted throughout the entire run. And it could be down to a number of things. Perhaps it's fatigue, maybe it's the cold weather, maybe it's the increase in intensity throughout the program. It could be a number of things. I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm just going to tell you what the true reality is like of doing the program. This run was very tough because I wanted to run like uh, um, sort of a faster jogging pace nearing to a running pace, but I wasn't able to do that. I was kind of stuck. I'm not sure how to put this really. Like my mind wanted to run, but my body just wouldn't let up, and I'm struggling as to find an idea as to why. Um, One of the things I experienced was very heavy feet. I haven't really experienced that before. I've had my quads feel quite heavy as I started to run for longer, but that was like a couple of runs ago. I haven't really felt it since then. So to have heavy feet is a bit of a strange feeling. I didn't even feel that on the run I did previously, which was for 20 minutes straight. I didn't feel that sensation then, but I have now, which is odd. And this was a very mental and physical battle because I was battling not only my mind but also my body. I had to sort of ignore the sort of messages I was getting from my body in terms of, oh, I'm very tired and really stuck. But I wanted to get through this run anyway, and it wasn't really a case of I was feeling intense pains or anything. Obviously, if I was feeling any of that, I would have like stopped and tried to address the problem. But it was it felt like I was very fatigued, and I'm not entirely sure why I felt fatigued because it's been a few days since I've run, so there's not really a reason why I should feel this way. But I feel like whenever you have a goal or you've got an objective you want to do, there's gonna be days where you don't feel like showing up, and I feel like today on this run was one of those days. This is one of those days where you could easily roll over. You could just not show up. You could just avoid it completely and do something else. But what happens is on these runs, these these are the greatest in terms of your growth. These are the runs that are going to test you. They're going to see whether you're mentally and physically capable of greatness. This is the kind of obstacle you're going to face on your path to achieving whatever big goal or ambition you've got. This is going to test you, just like life will in many ways. And this was one of those instances where I felt this real mental and physical battle. Like, in my mind, I wanted to run and be able to run through a little bit of a faster pace and be able to go through it swimmingly, but that's not how things turned out. And that's life. You're not going to feel 100% every time you show up, even though that would be great. That would be great, but that's just not what happens. There's going to be days where you don't feel up to it, but you still show up and do it anyway, which I would describe as today. And with these days, I feel are the most important because it's the days where you don't feel like showing up but do anyway. These are the days that mean the most, because on the days you feel motivated and you end up doing the thing, yeah, that's great, of course it is. And there's nothing wrong with motivation. Motivation is great if you feel a deep drive and sense of encouragement to pursue your goal or activity. Great. Motivation's a good thing. However, on the days where it's not there and you have to rely on discipline, discipline is also great because you're able to go out and do the thing without relying on motivation, and you end up achieving the thing anyway. So there's nothing wrong with motivation and there's nothing wrong with discipline, but those two put together, you create sort of an unstoppable force. You create this person, someone who shows up regardless of how they feel, and they go out and set to achieve the thing they intended to achieve. And that's the kind of person who accomplishes things. That's the kind of person who, when they set out a goal, they go out and achieve it. And this is the kind of person I want to become. So, in terms of the mental and physical battle, as I started in the run, the first 5 minute block was fairly okay. I felt my legs feel a little bit not tight per se, just a little bit heavy. So I went a little bit slower than usual. And then as I got into my next block of running for 8 minutes, this is where I started to really feel it. And perhaps it's a mixture of fatigue and maybe the settings, like the cold weather, it being October now, so it's nearing or pretty much in winter. So the conditions you're running are going to be a little bit harsher on your body, as you're going to have to work harder to keep your body warmer and be able to obviously run as well. But in terms of that, the conditions you run in will play a little bit of a factor in how your run goes as well. You may end up having to actually run a little bit slower, so you're able to maintain a steady pace and like progress and see yourself throughout the entire run. And then towards the final 5 minutes, my body really wanted to give up, and I really wanted to just like call it a day and say, you know what, I don't really feel like running anymore. And that idea of like stopping and just taking a break felt very tempting. And I think for a second I was sort of battling in my mind as like, you know what, shall I just have a quick break and just stop? And then the other part of my mind was like, you know what, you've already come so far, just see it through, see the rest of your run through, and you'll have all the time in the world to rest after you've completed the run. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up seeing it through, and pushing myself to the very end, but this was one of my toughest runs so far. And I guess this is one of those runs where you put an emphasis on showing up and pushing through. This is one of those runs where it's not going to feel glamorous. You're not going to feel like you're gliding. You're not going to particularly enjoy it. It's going to be tough. But all you need is the right mindset and mentality when it comes to running. This is going to be one of those hard runs. This is going to be something that challenges you, tests you, and it's going to be one of those that determines whether you're capable of being a runner. Of course, you should adopt that mentality and mindset that you are a runner, but this will test whether or not you're truly capable of making great progress, because you're going to come across many obstacles, and this was a great one of them. And if I look back to let's just like take a step back and look back at the run I did previously, my last run, which was a run for 20 minutes non-stop. The run I did today felt harder than that, even though I ran for more time in the previous run, which sounds kind of strange thinking about it, but that's how I felt really. So it just goes to show that on days where you feel up for it, things are going to feel easy. They'll even feel fun. And on days where you're not up to it, they're going to be very tough. But how you approach your objective or your goal will make all the difference. I went into this run being like, you know what, I've made it this far already. Regardless of how I feel, I'm going to make sure I get to the end, and that's exactly what I did. When I got to the end of the run, admittedly, I was very, very tired and my legs felt very heavy, so I'm going to take a bit of time to stretch and decompress, but I'm going to acknowledge that there's going to be some days where I'm not going to feel up to it. There's going to be days where perhaps you don't even want to run, but you end up showing up anyway and getting through it, and those may end up being your best runs, because the emotions you feel before doing an activity may not reflect how the activity actually goes itself. One experience I can draw to is when I hit the gym and I'm not feeling particularly great or motivated before a gym session, but as soon as I get in there and start doing a little warm up, it ends up being a great session. And I think that same concept kind of applies here for the run as well. I didn't really feel up to running today, but I ended up doing it anyway, and I feel fulfilled and accomplished because I went for this run despite how hard it was. And it just goes to show that whenever you set out a goal or objective, when you go out and you end up achieving it, I don't think I've ever had a sense of regret after doing it. Like whenever I've done a workout, I've rarely regretted completing it. The only one instance I can think of where I regretted doing it was when I was kind of half ill and I kind of worked out. I'm not sure why I did it, but I did, and I felt more ill and tired afterwards, which was obviously not very clever, but that's the only instance I can think of where I regretted a workout. But other than that, when I've done something that's tough, I've always felt better afterwards, and it's probably down to the chemicals in your body that show up after doing something tough, and it probably is enforced by the idea of delayed gratification, where you do something tough first and then you sort of get the reward feeling afterwards, kind of like with endorphins, which are the chemical that are produced after doing something tough like exercise, which make you feel great afterwards because you've done something challenging. So yeah, that's how the run went. I'm going to throw in a little screenshot from Strava, and I will see you in the next run.